I'm gonna mute myself.
I'm gonna be right back.
Okay. Welcome to the Murray City Municipal Council Committee of the Whole for February 16th. (2021).
Give me a minute to shut this off, Diane.
Okay. All right. All council members are present. Rosalba Dominguez and Brett Hales are on Zoom. So, hi guys. And I will read
Hello.
this. And I will read this statement that says, public notice is hereby given that this meeting will occur electronically without an anchor location in accordance with Utah Code 52-4-2074 due to the infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus. The council chair has determined that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location, because physical distancing measures may be difficult to maintain in the Murray City Council chambers. The public may view the meeting via the live stream at www.murraycitylive.com or on Facebook at www.facebook.com Murray City, Utah, and Murray is capitalized. Okay, citizen comments or public hearing comments, and we have two, well, and when we have our council meeting, we'll have two public hearing comments. Anyway, they may be made as follows live through the Zoom meeting process. Those wishing to speak during those portions of the meeting must send a request to city.council@murray.utah.gov by 3 p.m. on the meeting date. So you would have already had to have contacted Jennifer on that. She would send you a confirmation email with instructions and a Zoom link to join the meeting. They can also be read into the record by sending an email in advance or during the meeting to city.council@murray.utah.gov. That's city.council@murray.utah.gov. Comments are limited to less than 3 minutes, and please include your name and contact information. All right, so our first committee of the whole issue is approval of minutes for the committee of the whole for January 19th, 2021. Are there any additions or changes for the minutes? Okay, hearing none. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great, thanks, Brett. Brooke, will you take the roll, please?
Mr. L.
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye. Thanks, Brooke. All right, our discussion items. Let's start with fiscal year 2019-2020 budget amendment, and Brenda Moore. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, so as we discussed in the mid-year budget review, we are going to make some modifications to the 2020-2021 budget. I'm going to start with the grant revenues that we have received. So these do not affect reserves in any way. The police beard growing allowance, I guess, where you get to bribe the police chief to grow a beard during October or November, I think it was this year. They made $1,000 and they're going to donate that to the Victims Advocate Emergency Responses. So we need to put that revenue and expense into the budget. The Utah Department of Health gave us a $3,600 Kids Zone mobile room divider, so they can adjust the size of the room based on the number of kids that are in there and keep the older kids away from the smaller kids. It's been really good for the Kids Zone, so they can keep that open. The EMS grant that we received turned out to be $1,451 more than we had previously budgeted, so we're going to increase the budget for that. There was a provider relief grant that the fire department found as part of CARES for $11,787. They are purchasing a hands-free CPR device, which I guess they have already had those before, but they needed to replace one, so they got this grant to do it instead of city funds. And then also a Create in Utah CARES grant, which helped fund some of the arts programming that we have done since COVID hit, some of the online programs. Also, in the general fund, I am proposing that we increase our sales tax revenue budget by $147,400. And we are doing that and appropriating it for the expenditures that we're going to increase the city council payroll due to our retirement and the payout for that. The job sharing and wage changes. We've put back into the budget the computer, $100,000 for the computer replacement program for PCs and various other computer equipment and servers that we had pulled out last year. Increased the travel and training budget for the police by $7,000 so they can do the appropriate trainings that they need. And also increased the city council professional services by $2,500 because of the increased cost of the broadcast and the Zoom meetings that we have incurred. And in great anticipation and hopes that we will be having a Fun Days parade and to buy candy for that if that should happen. Because we do not want to go down, or you don't want to be in the parade without the appropriate taffy to throw. The CIP fund, we are going to put some of the requests back into the budget that we had previously pulled due to the uncertainty for COVID. Parks needs $40,000 for a truck to replace an aging truck. The senior recreation building needs $45,000 to fix their HVA system so that they have one. The police equipment, we're going to add back the police cars that we had previously told them not to buy. So I think it's like 8 police cars and appropriate equipment for $292,000. Public Works is going to get $25,000 for speed signs, $20,000 to complete the transportation study, and $200,000 to complete the Hanauer Street extension landscaping, which was inadvertently left out of the original budget. And then the CIP fund is going to transfer $47,360 to the golf fund. So in the golf fund, due to that transfer, we're going to receive that revenue and allocate it to the 2 sand trap rake machines, and $10,000 for a golf cart lift so they can get the golf carts to a height to work on them. I guess theirs broke. And just in case you're wondering, Councilmember Turner, they did research the possibility of getting electric sand trap rakes, but they are not, the technology is not there yet, and the people who have them have had lots of issues with breakdowns, and so I think this time they're going to go with normal gas-powered sand trap rakes. And
Darn.
also, yeah, I know it's kind of I wish the technology was there for that.
Yeah, it's probably right on the cusp.
Also in the golf fund, we are going to appropriate appropriate from reserves $379,775 to purchase the golf carts. We had a long discussion about the need. They have worn out their golf carts due to increased use, and they were at their end of life anyway. So we are going to purchase new ones, the ones with lithium batteries. Hopefully they will last more than 5 years this time, and they're also just better in general for use of power. And then in the risk fund, I don't think we had actually explicitly talked about this, but we are going to add $100,000 in professional services from their reserves for increased litigation expenses. I think we had talked about in the mid-year budget that there were 3 or 4 or 5 cases, I'm not sure how many, that have just all come to a head all at the same time. So we're going to increase their litigation, professional services for the litigation expenses associated with those. So those are the general things that are in the budget opening that will come before you on March 2nd. There'll be a public hearing and then your consideration of the ordinance. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Brenda?
I don't.
How about you? Do you have any, Kat?
No, thank you. It's always good news when we have grants to bring in, and grateful we can put some money back in these projects for departments.
Rosalba, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Brett?
No, but thank you for that report. We appreciate that, Brenda.
Okay,
All right. Thanks, Brenda. Appreciate it.
thank you.
All right, next we're at Open and Public Meeting Act training. We look forward to this every year. GL?
Speak through this mic or the, okay, all right, got it. This is annual training that's required by state law.
Do you have your microphone on?
I have this one on, I can, is that okay? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, now I can
Okay.
hear you.
This is annual training that's required by state law. And the chair, or the presiding officer of the public body, is required to ensure that this happens every year. And so that would fall to Council Chair Turner. The public policy of the Open Public Meetings Act is to remind us that public bodies, and of course the City Council is a public body, exists to aid the people in their business, to conduct the people's business. And public bodies, part of that policy is that should take their actions openly and should deliberate openly. Openly, I think it's important to remember, refers to the ability of the public to observe. We have a citizen comment like many entities do, and that's fine. But otherwise, members of the audience may not participate in the deliberations of the council unless they're explicitly invited to, like in a public hearing, for example. Meeting, of course, is the convening of the council with a quorum. So whenever 3 of you meet to discuss a matter that you have jurisdiction over, or to receive comments from the public about that matter, or if you're acting upon a matter, taking a vote, that would be a meeting. Chance gatherings or social gatherings are not considered a meeting unless you talk shop. Then it could be converted into a meeting and would violate the Open Public Meetings Act. Quorum, of course, is the majority of the membership, and that would be 3 for the City Council. And then there's notifying the public. What we're required to do under state law is, since we have regularly scheduled meetings every year, we're required once a year to give an annual notification, which we send to the paper, that talks about the place, date, and time of each of the meetings that we're going to have in the coming year. In addition to that, we give at least 24 hours notice to each individual public meeting. We do that by posting the agenda here in the city We also send it to the, post it to the Utah Public Notice website and provide notice to the media on each meeting. That notice, of course, can be disregarded if there is a need for an emergency meeting. And at that point, we give the best practical notice to the public that we can. The agenda. As you look at your agenda, keep in mind that we must describe each topic with reasonable specificity so the public will know what it is that we're going to discuss that night at that meeting. Each topic needs its own agenda item. And a topic raised by the public at the discretion of the chair can be discussed, but it cannot be acted upon. We've talked about closed meetings before. Murray has a very proud tradition, in my opinion, of not closing many meetings. Several years ago, there was an article in the paper that pointed that out. We'd only closed maybe less than a handful, I think, compared to a lot of other cities. So there could be a time when that was necessary. That would require a quorum to be present, 2/3 of those present voting for to approve the closed meeting. You give the reasons for the meeting, the location of it, and the vote of each council member for or against is publicly announced before you close the meeting. And I've listed on the screen reasons that you can close the meeting. There's a lot of other reasons, but they really don't apply to the city. These are the ones that apply, I would say, most of the time to a given city. Litigation would be one. Real property transactions would be another. And then, of course, you have to have record the meetings. The minutes of the meeting, the closed meeting. That's a protected record that can be challenged in court, and then a judge would have to decide whether those were disclosed. Electronic meetings, we now know that there are two types of electronic meetings. One is where you have an anchor location and where the public is invited to come. That would be if someone was traveling or out of the area. They could, as two are doing tonight, participate electronically. But there's also the electronic meetings without an anchor location. That's what we're experiencing now in this pandemic. That's the one that requires the chair to make a written determination, state the determination on the record, and then include that in the public notice. Finally, when it gets down to enforcement, it does not violate the Open Public Meetings Act to remove somebody who's disrupting the meeting to the point where or it's not orderly anymore. You can have someone removed. Final actions that we take that are in violation of the Open and Public Meetings Act are voidable, meaning a judge could determine that we had violated the act and that the action we had taken, the vote we had taken, was no good. That would be voidable. There's public enforcement for a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. The Utah Attorney General, the county attorney, the district attorney can enforce the chapter. There's also a private enforcement where someone who's denied a right under the chapter can sue the city and get a determination as to whether we did violate the Open Public Meetings Act. And then finally, to violate the closed meeting portion of the act intentionally is a Class B misdemeanor. So it's something we obviously take very seriously. I want to talk real quickly. Utah's got I think, a heritage of transparency. Utah was the first state to pass this Sunshine Law, which was in 1898, the Utah Open Public Meetings Act. Sunshine Law simply means that we hold our meetings in the open where the public can observe and be present. And then finally, I thought this was really an appropriate statement. This was written by a federal judge, now deceased, but had sat on the bench in the Sixth Circuit. The Sixth Circuit includes Ohio and Michigan, Kentucky, I think Tennessee. And this was a time after 9/11 when somebody was being held in deportation proceedings, and the government wanted to have these proceedings behind closed doors. And this is what this judge wrote. He wrote, "Democracies die behind closed doors. When government begins closing doors, it selectively controls information rightfully belonging to the people. Selective information is misinformation." I think it's important to focus on that part where he says, controls information rightfully belonging to the people. The information that comes to us as public servants comes only because we are public servants. but that information belongs to the people. The judge went on to warn and said, without question, the events of September 11, 2001 left an indelible mark on our nation, but as we as a people are united in the wake of the destruction to demonstrate to the world that we are a country deeply committed to preserving the rights and freedoms guaranteed by our democracy. Today we reflect our commitment to those democratic values by ensuring that our government is held accountable to the people and that First Amendment rights are not impermissibly compromised. Open proceedings with a vigorous and scrutinizing press, and I would add public, serve to ensure the durability of our democracy. I thought that was a very appropriate statement for this particular type of training. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions for GL up to this point?
No question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Brett?
Jill, I don't know if you can go back to that slide, but somewhere you had quoted, or you had said on one of your slides that if someone in the public had brought something up and it was not on the agenda, that we can comment about that. Explain just a little. I know you're probably
Sure.
talking about the citizens' comments, citizens' comments.
So the rule is, Brett, that we only are allowed to discuss items on the agenda. The exception to that is if someone brings up, say in citizen comment, something not on the agenda, you are allowed to discuss it at the discretion of the chair, but we aren't allowed to make any decisions on it.
Sure.
So generally speaking, I would say it's not a great practice to comment on everything someone says, but occasionally you may want to do that, and you're allowed to do that so long as you don't make any decisions.
Okay, and then the next thing I had is you talked about an anchor location. So what we're doing now, I mean, besides Rosal and myself, but there is an anchor location. So a statement doesn't need to be read when you have an anchor location?
No, it's a really good question. So tonight would not be considered an anchor location because the public is not here. So to have an anchor location, you have both a quorum, but you also have the public.
Gotcha.
So this is that second type of electronic meeting where there is not an anchor location.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brett. Rosalba, do you have any questions up to this point?
No, thank you.
Sure. Okay. You can continue.
So I want to say it was last year or year before, Council Chair Turner suggested that we begin having an annual training on harassment. We did one last year, I remember, and maybe the year before, I don't recall for sure. But this is a part of that at that request. There's a policy that you have in your council rules. It's rule number 9, I think it is, that the city will foster and maintain a work environment free from discrimination and intimidation. That rule, Rule 9, is applicable to the city council. And the reason that this came about, the city administrative side has a policy, an anti-harassment policy. And we thought it important, not because harassment rules don't apply to the city council, but to put this in writing so that it's there and it can be reviewed. And again, we can have training on it. Even without this rule, clearly you would be held to a high standard in terms of harassment. Given your positions at the top of city government, employees look to you for an example, and you're in a position where you can have a lot of influence. And so it's important that you are well aware of this. We have the definition in the rules of harassment, which basically lists those protected classes. And harassment is any unwelcome conduct that's based on one of those protected classes. What conduct is harassing conduct? Demeaning comments, whether in writing or orally, using unwelcome epithets, gestures, other physical conduct. I think it's important also to point out that harassment doesn't have to be sexual in nature, doesn't have to be motivated by sexual desire to be illegal. It's just offending conduct based on someone's gender that is pervasive enough or severe enough to create the hostile work environment. The EEOC has guidelines that defines sexual harassment as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and so forth. You can see that on your screen. I think in terms of the City Council, those could apply. And the reason I say that is the submission to such conduct is a term or condition of an individual's employment. City employees look up to you, and there is a belief that you could have some type of influence on their employment. And so I think it's important that you keep that in mind when you have any type of engagement with the city with employees. Also, conduct that has the purpose or effect of interfering with work performance, or that creates an intimidating, hostile, offensive work environment. Part of this is not to say that obviously you don't want to engage in this conduct, but if you see this conduct happening, it's important that you speak up as well. Unwelcome conduct is conduct that just is unwanted, and it is unwelcome or unwanted when the person subjected to it considers it unwelcome. Either gender may harass, either gender may be a victim. I think we oftentimes think of a male harassing a female, and that probably is the majority of cases. But there's also female harassing males, and same-sex harassment is also illegal. There's listed here some of the inappropriate conduct. These are the more, I think, obvious ones. On the next screen, there's some others that are maybe not as obvious. I'll go over those. The next, this list, compliments of an employee's appearance, commenting on the attractiveness of others in front of an employee. We're talking about a pervasive, uncomfortable type of conversation. Not necessarily a one-time, hey, that looks great, but I think you know it when you see it, or you know it when you hear it. Asking about another's intimate life and the photos and things like that, I think we're all aware of that, but I think it's good to review that as well. Suggestive text messages or emails, repeated touching, and of course, obvious one is some sort of sexual assault would obviously be sexual harassment. The laws that apply, there's a federal law, it's Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and state law has a comparable law to the Civil Rights Act, and then Council Rule 9 is also one of these. I would say that's a law that applies as well. When it comes to this conduct, it's important to report it. If this conduct involves a city employee, or someone on a board or commission, maybe you see it as with a vendor, then you would want to report that to the mayor. If it's something that involves a council member, then as we talked about that, we concluded that you would report that to me. A prompt investigation ensues, and as far as possible, that's kept confidential. And then any corrective action would be brought to the city council potentially to take action against the person who's perpetrated that, if it's a council member. And the city council does not permit any type of retaliation for reporting or someone who cooperates in an investigation. That is it in a nutshell. What questions can I answer?
Questions for Gia? No questions from you two? Brett? Rosalba?
Not for me, thank you.
No, not for me. Thank you. Thank you, Gio.
Thank you.
Okay, the social media, you have that as, is that something we discuss here, or?
Yeah, I didn't plan on going into great depth in that, but that is, the social media had to do with the Open Public Meetings Act, I believe.
It
where
has,
the Open and Public Meetings Act, the social media,
uh-huh.
right? Has to do with that, where you don't want to violate the Open Public Meetings Act by getting on social media and essentially having a quorum present.
Right, Right, I know that was on the first one, but I was just noticing that you didn't talk about that.
No,
on
just
the-
for your consideration.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that wasn't terrible. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll continue on, and we're actually have lots of time for you, Kat, for your legislative update.
Excellent. I'll talk very slowly. That'll stretch out the time. All right. So first of all, I want to thank the mayor's office intern. I should have written down their name. What was?
Caden Daly.
And they are fantastic. I was sitting down, I thought I was going to type this up myself, and I saw GL's email, and I thought, they are amazing, and they put all of this in one place. So great. Because there are so many bills going on in our quick 45-day session. So the ones on here, the ones that impact us here in Murray. So I'll just go through them all, and GL has offered to help out with any explanations, or please feel free to jump in if there's further things for any of these that we should touch on. So the first one is utility permitting amendments, which the ULCT is opposing. And that's a bill where municipalities can't restrict any utility services based on the type of utility. There is an amendment, and the ULCT changed their position to neutral. There's not a fiscal impact for this one, and it was signed by the Speaker of the House and sent for enrolling on Friday. Anything we need to know about that one, GL? Okay. Next up, we've got a voter referendum amendment. This is a land use law, includes property rezoning. Local law includes property zoning. Voter referendums passed after April 15th can still get on the ballot if approved by sponsors. There's no fiscal impact for this one. This one's currently with Senate Judiciary, Law Enforcement, and Criminal Justice Committee. Oh, and that one was on the agenda for this morning, so I'm not sure what happened with that one
So
this morning.
I'm not sure what happened to it, but that was basically a clarification to explicitly put in the law that a rezone is a legislative act that is referable.
Excellent, thank you. And then we've got a land use and eminent domain advisory board amendment. This one is just extending an advisory board, so they're always moving the sunset date so they can continue their work. Then we've got impact fees amendment. This is, let's see, they talked about this one on Thursday. I feel like I have no sense of what day it is. I'm looking at dates and going, did that date already happen? That date already happened. So this is, can use expense for overhead when calculating impact fees, and supported by ULCT. Anything exciting with that one? Nope. All right, firearm preemption amendments. This is an oppose for ULCT. The state has sole authority to regulate firearms and make exceptions and defines consequences of violation. This one is still in House Rules Committee.
In a nutshell, I think what happened with that was we already know that the state has preempted us. We can't pass an ordinance that contradicts state law. But apparently there were a couple of entities that had policies that were contradictory. And so this clarifies you simply cannot go against state law.
And then we've got a bill here by Rep. Ward and Senator Anderegg, single-family housing modifications, ADU. That's accessory dwelling units, and ULCT has opposed this one. This is a bill that would mean that municipalities cannot regulate ADUs or restrict number of individuals in a household to anything less than 4 individuals, 3 if the municipality is within the boundaries of a university.
So that one passed?
This one has been circled.
Oh, okay, so it's,
Yeah, is that correct?
It is.
That-
I think on this one it's important to keep in mind, I believe, that Murray City passed an accessory dwelling unit ordinance years ago. I don't recall exactly how many, but it's been quite a few years ago. And in that ordinance, we require that the home be occupied by the owner, that there be 2 additional spaces to park off-street, And I believe it's confined to, I don't remember how many square feet it is, 900 square feet or some type of limit on the number of square feet. And I think what you'll find this legislative session is what we find every legislative session, and that is we feel like there are times when the state legislature is encroaching on local control.
Right.
And this is one of those times where we're feeling that the state has made this a priority, making ADUs more available so that there's more opportunity for people to have housing in the valley. And they will lift some of these restrictions that we now have. They for example, and it's not done yet, Kath's right, they're still negotiating, and we were told that the representative doing this has been very good to reach out and talk to ULCT and others about the bill. But it will probably only restrict it at most to one additional parking spot. It may or may not restrict the square footage. So there's some things that'll be a little bit different, but I think you'll find that there's a lot of change happening at the legislature when it comes to housing. And their main goal is to make it more affordable to live in the valley. And so we may not love what they're doing, but this is part of it. And this is one of the big parts that they have put as a priority this year, is the accessory dwelling unit.
So are they restricting how much can be charged?
No.
So just because it's an accessory dwelling unit, they can charge as much as they want. So how does that meet,
Well,
the standard of
I suppose I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily completely greed that drives us, but I think that your point is well taken. I think the idea is that you have already existing housing stock. We're talking single-family
Right.
zones, basically. And if you can fit families or more people, then they want to try to do that. Now, having said that, I think your point is well taken. This may limit itself, right? If you own a place and you don't want to share it with someone else, you don't have to. But if you want to, and some, I think this was put out in the, I want to say the Gardner Institute, whatever that's called. They wrote a paper on affordable housing.
Kim
This was
Gardner.
one of the things that they wrote about, was how this moves in the direction of more affordable housing. So I don't know exactly, but I don't think you're going to find somebody that's going to live in a basement if it's an astronomical amount. So I think the idea is it probably won't be, but if it is, it is, and we don't control that either.
And it's about the affordability of the person owning the house too, because if they're renting it out, they can afford their mortgage. That's
Yeah.
part of the argument.
Yeah.
Not about the cost of the rental unit.
Okay.
Next up is Representative Ray, local government building regulation amendments. And I'll say a lot of these bills I had to do a lot of reading into and a lot of technical reading. And this was one that just seemed obviously unopposed for ULCT before we got far into it all. And that's, this bill proposes construction can opt out of independent inspections or hire their own inspector. And municipalities can't restrict certain design elements. And if a building was damaged by a natural disaster, repairs are exempt from certain code requirements. So that one's pretty clear why we would oppose it. And then there's Senator Sandel, outdoor advertising amendments. This one has had lots of buzzes. For cities, ULCT opposes. This one has been substituted and circled again as of Friday. I don't think it's on an agenda again yet, as far as I've heard, but this would restrict municipalities' ability to regulate placement, brightness, and other elements of outdoor advertising signs and billboards. So it takes away a lot of our local rights on that.
Yep, and you're right, GL. I mean, they keep trying to do that. They don't like to have their rights taken away from the federal government, but they're okay with doing it with us, with cities. And anyway, I find that frustrating.
And then we've got Representative Snyder has sheriff's amendments. ULCT opposes this. This is sheriff has authority over local police department if they disagree on enforcement of riot, civil disturbance, and breach of peace. This is still in House Rules Committee, so it hasn't gotten too far. Anything on that one? No? Okay. And then we've got Representative Harrison and Senator McKell have emergency management amendments. This one is a support by ULCT. Political subdivisions appoint an emergency manager and create an emergency operations plan, and state agencies have to consult with the Division of Emergency Management before taking on construction projects. State disaster recovery accounts earned interest to be deposited back into the account. So some emergency preparedness. Let's see, we've got one more page of these. All right. Next up, we've got Representative Ferry and Senator Owens with subdivision plat amendments. ULCT has not made a recommendation, support, or oppose yet on this one. It's described as surveyors must specify water conveyance facilities entirely within or within 100 feet of the proposed plat and notify the owner of the water conveyance facility of the proposed plat. Anything on that one? Okay. Then we've got Senator Iwamato and Representative Wilcox, law enforcement internal investigation requirements. This is a support for ULCT. It requires that an employing agency notify the Peace Officer Standards and Training Division if a peace officer separates from the agency while an investigation is in progress. Investigation must be turned over to the division in certain circumstances. Anything on that one?
I think that's just an extension of where I think we are going with this legislative session, and that is, currently, if there's an internal affairs investigation and someone resigns before the investigation is over, then it's considered over. This would send that investigation to post in certain circumstances, where what that means is, the intent is an officer who's a problem can't just go to the next jurisdiction and be a problem there. The record will follow even if it's not a completed investigation. I think that's the intent behind that.
And it doesn't now. That's
Does not now.
interesting.
That's correct.
Yeah. We've got two more. We've got Senator Maine and Representative Dunnigan. They have Metro Township amendments, which is a support for ULCT. It repeals provisions restricting a Metro Township's ability for energy sales and use tax and allows a Metro Township to impose an energy sales and use tax or a telecommunications license tax. Anything on that one? All right, and then we've got Senator Harper and Representative Handy, Community Reinvestment Agency amendments. ULCT does not currently have a position on this. Agencies can levy a property tax on property within the agency's boundaries and restricts the agency from widening the scope of some project plans or project budgets. An agency can use property tax revenue for agency projects. And that one's not on the agenda yet for its committee. Yeah, anything for that one?
The idea behind that is that you have a project area where you could then impose a tax, as opposed to, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, this is when the time comes where you can no longer collect tax increment. You could then impose a tax. This is just it's not required to do. It's an added possibility for these project areas.
Interesting.
Yeah. But there's still a lot going on, and so we'll report back at the next council meeting. But I've had some good back and forths with Senator Davis and reaching out. Reached out to lots of other legislators too regarding many of these bills, but he's responded back and been really courteous about information and grateful that we're giving him the city's perspective. So can keep reaching out too.
All right. Any questions for CAD or GL on any of these bills? Rosalba?
No?
Brett?
Nope, thank you. I appreciate the update.
All right. Wow, look at this. We have a half an hour. Crazy. That's awesome. All right. Do we have any announcements, Jennifer?
Just one that I've already sent to you guys through email, but the Murray Area Chamber of Commerce is doing a ribbon cutting for their rebranding on Thursday, February 25th at 11:30. If any of you guys want to go to that, let me know and I'll get you registered.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We are adjourned.
Is the council ready
I'm ready.
in the chambers?
Yep,
It's already 6:30.
we're all ready. There you are.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Just
Rosalba.
getting confirmation.
I'm here. I'm ready.
Awesome. Thank you. Jennifer, are we ready to go? Bill?
Yeah.
I just want to get confirmation before I call this meeting to order.
We're ready to go. We're ready.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us to the Murray City Council meeting. Today is February 16th. I think I know the date. And I am going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I have asked Brett to join. I did ask a Boys and Girls Club member to do it, but unfortunately she got her times crossed and she had to go to work. So hopefully we can bring her back in the future. Brett, go ahead.
Thank you for asking me, Rosalba. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brett. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with approval of minutes. I will ask for any changes or corrections made to that. I believe there are some. I'll go ahead and address what they are. So in the first paragraph, the date of the minutes have been changed to January 19th, 2021. The second change was the last sentence on the page 14 was reworded. Can I go ahead and get approval of those changes?
I'll move to,
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
is it? Okay, I'll try it again. I'll move to approve the council meeting minutes for January 19th, 2021 with the changes that you had indicated.
Okay, perfect. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Martinez. Go ahead, Brooke.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. House?
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
And Ms. Dominguez?
Aye. All right, it looks like it's been approved with the changes. Thank you so much, everyone. And we're going to go ahead and move forward to our special recognition, Murray City Council Employee of the Month, Laura Lloyd, and I will let Brett go ahead and present. Go ahead, Brett.
Thanks, Rosalba. Laura, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and
Okay.
clear. Thanks for being here, Laura. We appreciate you. And John, you're with us too, right? Chief? Yep, I see him. Okay, we'll just, Laura, we're excited to be able to present this to you. Chief Harris will be doing the actual presentation, but as a council, we just wanted to give a shout out to you and thank you as you were nominated to be the Employee of the Month. Laura, you've been here, I know you've been here at least 26 months. I think that's really 26 years, isn't it? You've been here 26 years because we've seen, had the opportunity to work with you over the past 9 years. So it's a privilege, honor that we have been able to start this program years ago to be able to acknowledge our employees. And we are just psyched that you're one of them because you've been one who's truly blessed the council with your smile and your participation in all the budget meetings you've done with several of our chiefs. So congratulations from the council. Do you have that certificate with you, Laura?
No,
Okay. Chief Harris will get that to you, and he's not gonna take that $50. He's got that $50 Visa card for you. And and so that's a huge thing. But we'll get that to you, and then we'll be putting your name on the plaque in the chambers, and then you'll get that certificate. But from the council, Laura, thank you so much for all that you do for our city. You're not only a great employee, but you're an awesome employee to be able to work with. So without any further ado, I'll turn the time over to Chief Harris to continue on. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Brett. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I had some technical difficulties. I'm glad everything's working okay. I often think about in our organization who or how we be disrupted the most if somebody left and who that person would be. And it's not me, it's Laura. Laura's the one that is really the how would you say, the link that kind of holds everything together. She has now worked through 4 fire chiefs. And I think I would say, rather than work for, I would say she has trained 4 fire chiefs. And I probably was the most difficult of all those 4. She has truly been tremendous help to me for budget preparation, maintenance, all accounts receivable, payable. I wouldn't claim to understand at all her system of accounting or maintaining records, but all I know is every time I ask her for something, she says, just give me a minute, and she comes right back, and she's got it. It's really impressive. All the numerous reports she does, annual report, proofreading documents, she really has been an asset to me and the prior chiefs and the whole department. When I asked a few months ago my administrative staff on who we should do for the Employee of the Month, they all suggested Laura. It was pretty impressive. So anyways, I'm just really glad Mayor and City Council to have this opportunity to really recognize her, and just hopefully she realizes how much she means to the whole department, and especially me.
Thank you. Can I say something?
Please do.
Yes.
I just want to say that working for the fire department has never been a burden because it's what I enjoy doing. And I get to work with people who are of the highest caliber. So being appreciated and recognized for my efforts is just the icing on the cake. So thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Laura,
Thanks, Laura.
Laura, it's Diane. I would just like to congratulate you. I'm surprised you haven't already had this acknowledgement, because I know how much you're appreciated, and we really do appreciate your service to Murray and for keeping those fire chiefs in line. I know it hasn't been easy. Anyway,
Thank you.
You're awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I say something as well? Laura, I see, because I'm one of those chiefs that you trained, I just want to say it's about time. It's about time you were recognized. Congratulations, well deserved. You deserve one of these awards every year. I know you're just, you're just one of those people that's happy to be behind the scenes and make sure that things are taken care of. And so, well deserved recognition. Congratulations, well overdue.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Laura. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for all your hard work, and we truly appreciate it, and we're happy to honor you today.
Thank you. I appreciate the recognition.
All right. Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Laura. We'll go ahead, and you guys are welcome to stay for the meeting, but you don't have to. We'll go ahead and continue on with our agenda here. Let's see, we have citizen comments, and I will let Jennifer and Patty go ahead and conduct this portion of the meeting.
So we don't have anything for citizen comments. Everything we received was related to the public hearings.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's go ahead and move forward to the public hearings then. We'll go ahead and start with our first public hearing to consider an ordinance related to land use amends the general plan to include a small area plan for Fashion Place West area. And Melinda Greenwood and Jared Hall will be presenting. Go ahead, Jared.
Thanks. I just wanted to briefly introduce the item tonight and then turn the time over to our consultant that did all the work on this, Mark Morris from VOTA. But if I could just share my screen for one moment so you can see that. This is, as you said, the Fashion Place Small Area Plan that's up for consideration. And it encompasses a large area around the Fashion Place West track station, roughly 6100 South, 6790 South, and I-15 to State Street. I wanted to just point out that one of the reasons that this plan is up for adoption as a part of as an amendment to the general plan is that our general plan from 2017, our Murray City General Plan, identified several places in the city where we ought to consider more what we call fine-grained studies, areas where we ought to look a little more closely and even just a little further define the kinds of things that we want to see happen. Still in broad terms, there's still vision documents. This small area plan is still what we call a visioning document. It's supposed to lay out the next, the patterns of development for 5 to 25 years. So it's kind of a long horizon, and you'll see that in the presentation from Mark Morris of VOTA, some of those kinds of aspects. But the Fashion Place West plan, as you can see on that screen, there was one of the areas that was identified to be further studied. The general plan can only accomplish so much in that larger document encompassing the whole city. So among other places, the Fashion Place West plan was identified. We looked for funding to identify a consultant and bring them on board to help us do that kind of planning. We looked to the Wasatch Front Regional Council's Transportation and Land Use Connection Program. We were awarded the grant, so it bore the brunt of the financial impact of the plan. The city had some matching funds, but the bulk of the money came from the TLC grants. Those are good grants. They're interesting because they're supposed to tie land use and transportation together. So they need to be, they're awarded to projects that very deftly tie together the transportation aspects of planning and the land use aspects. And there's no better place really to do that than the transit stations. We had previously, as a city, been awarded and conducted and adopted a similar plan, small area plan for the Murray Central Station. The next logical choice for us was Fashion Place West. We did select VOTA to take us through that process and produce that plan. Mark Morris and Annalise Eichelberger were the principals on it. They did have some outside help from other agencies or other consultants as well, but they were the principal consultants on the project. And Mark, as I said, will be presenting the plan to you tonight in brief for the public. It was, over the course of the last year, brought to the Planning Commission and the City Council in segments, portions of the plan as they were completed in draft segments to be reviewed. We did conduct, and Mark will go over this somewhat too, a survey and an open house toward the beginning of the process to get public input, and then send a lot of notices in the last couple of months as well to get this before you tonight as a public hearing. We did make findings as it was presented to the Planning Commission, and they did recommend approval, forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. I just wanted to point out a couple of quick things in these findings for you before it goes into Mark's presentation. I'll turn the time over, but as I said, the general plan provides for us to do this kind of additional study and then be adopted as an amendment to the general plan. We found as a staff and as the Planning Commission, and then recommended to you as the council, that this does fit the goals and initiatives of the Murray City's general plan. And then that fifth and final finding, the proposed small area plan will provide residents, staff, elected officials, and the development community, clear guidance as to how the city anticipates development within the subject area will occur. Again, just as Mark starts his presentation, it's an overview kind of a plan. This is not it's not an action plan where the city is looking to do large-scale rezones or implement certain projects. It suggests the way the city should respond to those projects as they come from the private sector. The city doesn't own any land in these areas. UTA owns some land, and then the rest of it's held privately. So we would look for this plan to be a guiding document for us to look at how we respond to development applications as they come over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. With that, I'd like to turn the time over to Mark Morris, our consultant on it, and let him go through those, the presentation of the project.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jared. And I will share my screen if you'll allow me to. Okay, thank you for the introduction, Jared, and it's good to be with you again, Council, to discuss the Fashion Place West Small Area Plan. As Jared mentioned, as a kind of a fine-grained plan for the area, this is really a visioning document to respond as private development comes along. As Jared mentioned, the city doesn't own land in this particular study area and has no intention to purchase. Nor does this plan recommend that. It's really to develop some design guidelines and some context so that you as City Council and the Planning Commission and the planning staff have some clear guidance on how to respond when development comes along. As Jared mentioned, this covers a large area north and south of Winchester, where the track station is located there on the left side of the map. And on the far east side of the city area, the frontage of the Fashion Place Mall. So really we weren't looking at the entire mall site, but seeing how these two pieces of the community could be better connected, and how development as it comes along this corridor could help the city with improvements to road infrastructure, streetscape infrastructure, all of the things that neighborhoods need to have city investment in. The document itself has a few main sections. We spent some time along with a transportation consultant, Fair and Pierce Transportation Consultants, looking at the existing conditions. What is the neighborhood in 2021? What does it look like? What sort of trends are we seeing? And how do we provide tools for the city in a few key areas? So one was housing. We looked at the housing markets and how housing can be introduced in a context-sensitive way into the neighborhood. Connectivity, dealing with some of the big connectivity issues within the neighborhood, and then, as I mentioned, some design guidelines to give the city a little bit more control over the types of development that develops. So, a few takeaways from the small area plan. One, the changes in the neighborhood must be context sensitive, and we'll talk about a few of those. That as development comes along, its location and the adjoining parcels really drive what the city would be recommending there, or what would be allowed there. Second, Murray City does not own significant land in the area, so really all of this is driven by private property owners. So until a property owner wants to develop or change what's going on, there really will be no change seen within the study area. Infrastructure improvements are sorely needed, especially along Winchester, to improve walkability and active transportation uses between the track station and the mall site. And again, that development as it comes along will help the city to fund those types of improvements. Concentration of new development near the track station will be more neighborhood scale. So these are things that will be pretty low rise, things that the neighborhood would use and need, as opposed to a more regional draw like the Fashion Place Mall. The fifth one, in the study as we went through it, we saw a lot of opportunity with the Fashion Place Mall site to see some transition there over the next decades to more of a mixed use center with other offerings beyond just retail. And then the last, as we all are aware, housing demand in the region is reaching pretty drastic levels. And the places where new housing really is most appropriate is where we have high quality transit service and good access to jobs. Locations such as this area. A few frequently asked questions that we've gotten over the course of this study is, when is development happening? As Jared mentioned, this is really a 25-year time frame, more of a visioning document. So there's definitely development interest in this area, as you know, in most areas of the city. This is putting into place some guidance so that the development that comes along is appropriate in scale. So at this time, there's no specific major developments being proposed, but we wanted to make sure the city is prepared when things come along. Jared mentioned UTA owns some property here. When property owners like UTA and others come along, that there's some clear guidance given. The second question, is the city going to be purchasing property in the study area? And no, the plan does not recommend the city buy property in the area. As Jared mentioned, a lot of this is looking at private property owners and how to give guidance in the future. Third question we get quite frequently, will apartment buildings be built within single-family neighborhoods within the study area? No, the plan recommends only low-density infill projects on empty parcel within the neighborhoods, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. The last question we've gotten a lot, what rezoning is happening with this plan? This plan does not rezone any properties. Any future rezones will have to go through typical rezone processes. During the process, four goals were established, working with city staff, public, as Jared mentioned, through open house and survey efforts, and discussions with Planning Commission. The first, strengthen that relationship between the track station and the Fashion Place Mall. The second, improve transportation connectivity for the neighborhood. Third, improve overall neighborhood quality by investing in public infrastructure such as sidewalks, lighting, trees, etc. And then last, promote transit use and active transportation. So as we have more destinations that are along the track system, that ridership increases and people have a lot more choice when it comes to where they live and how they access jobs and their other destinations in their daily lives. In February of 2020, we had an open house in the study area at the Senior Center to talk about some of the initial issues that we were seeing and get some response from the community. In the summer, we had a public survey with had about 150 responses to that, looking at what were the things that the neighborhood was seeing that they wanted addressed. And so as we go through the process, we check in to make sure that we're addressing the issues that the residents are seeing, business owners, property owners, etc. A key piece of this process was looking at housing. The housing demand, the supply is not keeping up with growth that we're seeing, and this is region-wide. Every city along the Wasatch Front is seeing increased demand, and that development pressure is only increasing. So as part of this, we wanted to make sure the city had the tools to respond to those, so that as housing proposals came along, that context was built into the general plan in ways that it wasn't already in the general plan with the specificity that was needed. So as the price to buy a home continues to increase and outpaces the rise in income, in household income, we're seeing more and more demand for building housing, especially in these transit-rich neighborhoods. One of the key components in the document is looking at what we call life cycle housing. So at different stages in each of our lives, we have different needs when it comes to housing types. And the intent with approaching housing policy from a life cycle housing standpoint is to say, within any particular neighborhood, is there the ability for someone to stay within their neighborhood, within their social network, and find an appropriate type of housing as their household grows, as they have more children, as the kids move away, what sort of housing choices are available. And so the context of that kind of derives how we address some of these recommendations. as part of the process, we looked at, as I said, not all solutions apply to every part of a study area. We developed some sub areas where we were looking at how are different components needed for different parts of the study area. Largest parts of the study area, the yellow sub areas north and south of 215. That study area or that sub area really is going to see the least amount of change. So the change that will be most visible will be that either along Winchester or along State Street. So we called this yellow sub area established residential as a residential area that with not a lot of change over a lot of time. And as we developed what our recommendations were for that, we made sure that it was sub area specific. And so as as time goes on, recommendations for one sub area don't apply to the others. So as an example, that sub area 1 north and south, those residential neighborhoods, that really you'll see no major land use changes, and the few parcels that are underutilized or unbuilt, it would need to be context appropriate infill projects. So we're talking about types of cottage cluster homes, patio homes, individual ADU projects that you're already seeing around the city, things that would fit in with a single family neighborhood. And again, none of these parcels are owned or controlled by the city. All of it would be when private property owners decide they would like to add things like an ADU, or if there's a lot that's undeveloped, that there would be some guidance as to keep that context as part of the prime driver behind that. The plan also gives some strategies as far as short-term actions by the city, medium-term actions, and long-term actions. Some of these things are as simple, as changing city policies or updating city policies. Some of them are long-term projects that would require a lot of input and a lot of collaboration with larger stakeholders like UTA, UDOT, or property owners. As I mentioned, our team worked with Fair and Pierce transportation consultants to do an analysis of connectivity issues around the neighborhood, and again, build an implementation strategy to build that into the plan, and to look at how can the city help to address some of those connectivity issues. And again, those were split into short-term, medium-term, and long-term projects. Some of them, bridging gaps in sidewalk infrastructure. So some of those things are quite simple. Some of them, again, complex connectivity issues that'll take quite some time to implement. But again, a lot of these are looking out 10, 20, 25 years to see what are the needs within the neighborhood to address address change. The design guidelines section outlines a few key urban design elements that the city should consider. So when a developer comes along and says, I would like to build on this parcel, the city will have some control as far as design guidelines on how that project is designed. Currently, with the general plan and current zoning, those design guidelines aren't in place yet. So one of the main recommendations for this project is for the city to develop that overlay for those design guidelines. So a lot of it is, again, urban design elements that you would want to see in a walkable neighborhood. The plan also includes a few catalytic projects, and so it looks at kind of key parcels to understand how can the city kind of build a vision for what the neighborhood could be. One of the clearly the key area around the track station. There are a lot of surface parking and other types of parcels that could be built on. As I mentioned earlier, the recommendation here is that this is neighborhood oriented. So you might see things like townhomes or the types of housing that you would want to have near a track station. Commercial would be things that are neighborhood scale commercial, things that the neighborhood can utilize, as opposed to drawing in people from outside of the neighborhood. One of the more long-term recommendations is opening that conversation with Fashion Place Mall site to talk about its potential conversion to more of a mixed-use center. With each of these catalytic projects, we've got a case study where we find another location somewhere in the country that has done something similar. We found a mall site in Colorado that had some similar elements to the Fashion Place Mall site, and saw how they converted over time to include more things like office space, housing, other things that could expand the use of the Fashion Place Mall site and provide more support as the retail sector changes, which is, we all know, retail, no one knows what the future of retail looks like. And so helping to start that process to talk about how this location is a very important center, that retail will still be there. However, how can we provide more opportunity for different types of development in a key location? As I mentioned, the implementation section of the document basically breaks down each of those projects, as it were, and gets it at least in the general plan, so that as questions come along, it's recognized that there are some pieces that the city should have some involvement in. And some of it is updating city policy, some of it is specific physical infrastructure improvements to the neighborhood. All right, and that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Mark. Does anybody have any questions? Council in the chambers?
Yeah, I do, Rosalba.
Go ahead, Dale.
I think I talked a little bit about this last week. We have a lot of people that are in the residential areas, and I've got the map here in front of me. And I've read through the plan again since last week, and I've driven the area. It appears to me that there'll be, and correct me if I'm wrong, there'll be no development or property utilized inside the existing housing areas of 1 and, well, I guess they're all 1. And correct me if I'm wrong, and the development will be where commercial is now. And there's a buffer between the housing, or the residential areas, I guess I should say. There's a buffer of the tracks line plus 3rd West between where residential is now and where any type of development, whether it be commercial, where it's already commercial now, or where there could be some townhomes or any type of development. And up on State Street, it's the same thing. Any type of development would be over on the mall and in the commercial areas. Nothing will change in the residential areas other than possibly the view going from seeing the back of Toys R Us to seeing a different type of commercial building or townhomes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I think the single family neighborhoods, that sub area 1, I think we identified there are a few unbuilt parcels in there, so you might see some things like new cottage clusters or single family homes built within that neighborhood, but it would be, the same scale of everything that's in the neighborhood. Anything that is, more townhomes or commercial, you're correct, that would be on the State Street side or, the existing commercial areas along Winchester. And I think that the design guidelines section, that's an important thing to point out, that development of design guidelines for the city, that gives the city opportunity to develop those types of buffer urban design standards that you're mentioning. And so currently there's nothing in the current code that kind of spells out what that buffer should look like. And so development of those design guidelines will help the city out to make sure that those buffering requirements are established when those types of developments come along.
Also, there's an opportunity for grants or funding to improve the existing neighborhoods, sidewalks, curb gutter, things like that. And I think and you said it earlier, but I think it's really important. Hopefully there's a lot of people in these residential areas that are watching tonight. We're not rezoning anything. This is a vision for 25 years from today to 25 years out. Nothing is going to happen in the immediate future. This is just a snapshot of things that this property could be used for, not necessarily will be used for. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's all dependent on, again, private property owners. This gives some vision and some guidance there. Those commercial properties along Winchester or State Street, developing, as Jared mentioned a little bit earlier, a little bit more fine-grained detail than the city currently has in the general plan.
And it's a vision document. It's not anything more than that. Is that correct? I sound like an attorney. What do you think of that, GL?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a comment. And also, it is a vision document, but if there were development that would go on in that area, it would go through the regular process, right? The zoning would not be changed unless it did go through the community involvement, go to the planning and zoning committee, and then finally come to us. But during that time, we would also have community input and during that whole process, correct?
That's exactly right, Diane. This is like Mark explained it, it's a vision document, and Dale's hitting all the right notes there. It's supposed to guide future private development and how we respond to that. So all of those would go through the normal channels.
Okay.
If somebody wanted to, Mark mentioned cottage clusters. If somebody came along and a property owner was ready to sell vacant property they had and wanted to replace their home with cottages that were similar in density, similar in the context sensitive, we've said that a lot of times, context sensitive changes, we would review that proposal and see what it needed to be accomplished and if it was appropriate under this plan, if it's context sensitive, if it's appropriate in its response to this plan and the general plan, but it still has to ask for approvals the same way any plan would. This plan doesn't grant any approvals to change anything. You still have to ask. It just supports or asks for more information or asks you to be sensitive to the context when you make those decisions.
Great. Thank you.
If I might, one more time, anytime there's change or thought of change, people get nervous. I'm going through that in my own neighborhood now with some other issues. But I think it's very important that people know that this is just a document, a vision document to look into the future and see what might be done there. Housing, single family housing won't be changed, and I know a lot of people have a hard time believing that. But as this document lays out, everything stays the same. If you look out the window right now and you see your neighbor's backyard, that's what you're going to see, unless you're on the very outside of the housing or the single-family housing. There could be changes there, but the buffer is there's always going to be change, but there's a large buffer between the residential and anything that could happen with tracks and Third West. And I really do appreciate that part of the plan.
All right, well, thank you. Anyone else before I open it up to public comments?
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, Kat.
So just to clear this up, one thing I've heard some residents have some concerns about is the mentioning of accessory dwelling units, or the ADUs, without seeing what parking requirements might be, or that type of thing. This document is not the type of document that is designed to regulate an ADU, correct?
That's correct. So the city has its current ADU ordinance that you've already been through the process to develop. One of the recommendations here is to look at that ADU ordinance and how do you update it so that it works for the neighborhood. Excellent. Yes.
So it's a recommendation of where these may be appropriate, but not the details of how those might be regulated. And I just think to echo what I think Dale and Diane have said, I just think it's really important to be clear in what this is and what it isn't. I think it's an excellent, thoughtful plan for future housing, connectivity, and design guidelines. I think it's really thoughtful. I think it has some really wonderful things in it, both in the big picture and small. And I am grateful that residents have taken the time, so many, to look into it and read it. I think that is absolutely wonderful. I want to share one of my favorite things about it is just the little recommendations, like in the parking lot at Fashion Place, to implement adding walkways from the mall entrance to adjacent roadways. If you've ever tried to eat across the street from the mall and walk over to go shopping with small children, it's terrifying. And the idea that you could eat lunch on one side and then safely walk across on the other is very simple, but huge in changing the way the flow works and making it more walkable. So I'm really excited about this plan. And I hope that everyone can feel comfortable with what it is. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and turn this time over to Jennifer, who has some public comments coming our way.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. We've received quite a few public comments, so Patty and I will just move back and forth and share them with you. The first one we have is from Ashley Bond. Dear City Council members, first of all, I would like to say that I am grateful that my neighborhood in the Fashion Place West area is getting some attention from the city in terms of improvements. As an older neighborhood, there are definitely things that could be improved upon. However, I do have many concerns with the proposed Fashion Place West plan. First, many of the people in my neighborhood are low-income individuals and families. The homes here are affordable for those who otherwise would not be able to afford a home. Sharp increases in property values in recent years have already priced many lower-income families out of the neighborhood. All of the proposed developments would undoubtedly make this problem worse. Secondly, your plan proposes building different housing types. This neighborhood has some of the most diverse housing options I've seen in any neighborhood, ranging from the apartments with condos to larger single-family homes. Housing diversity is not the problem, and to tear down existing homes on Winchester to build said housing not only fails to account for this, but also creates a sense of irony. The people who could once afford homes in this neighborhood will now be the tenants in the apartments built on the land that they once owned because they cannot afford a home elsewhere. The low-income people in my neighborhood will not benefit from these new housing developments. Lastly, the proposal of sidewalks throughout the neighborhood is unnecessary. We've never needed them, and this space does not allow for them. Fences, yards, and well-established trees would be destroyed to accommodate sidewalks. As a longtime resident of Murray, it makes me sad to see my tax dollars go towards unnecessary sidewalks rather than to things like building and repairing schools, preserving historic structures, cleaning up the old ore site near 5300 South, or developing other areas that have long sat vacant. In short, I do not feel that the addition of sidewalks to this neighborhood is a good use of tax dollars, and many of my neighbors echo this sentiment. Thank you for your time and for listening to my concerns. I hope that you will take them under advisement. And Patty will read the next one.
Okay, this comes from Cindy Call, and she is a Murray resident. Dear Murray Council, I've lived in Murray longer than anywhere else in my life. I chose Murray because of the quiet community it provided for my children when they were growing up. I stayed in Murray for the very same reasons. Bringing in businesses and high-density housing to this area will change that forever. Adding sidewalks and parking strips to an older, well-established neighborhood is unnecessary. It invites unwanted auto and pedestrian traffic into a once quiet neighborhood, also raising the risk of safety for children that play and go to school here. These are not through streets. They do not lead to the track station. They do not lead to the mall. Yet there will be a significant increase of traffic. There's always someone looking for a shortcut to get in and out of and around traffic, especially from 3 to 6:30 p.m. It's already difficult trying to get in and out of the neighborhood without adding additional living and business space just around the corner. There will be an increase in crime, which is already on the rise. A pedestrian crossing and no U-turn would be appropriate at the entrance onto Creek Drive. Place speed bumps on Creek and Valley Drive in front of the old library to discourage speeders. Many parking strips and sidewalks in other neighborhoods go unkept or have inappropriate landscape with trees that end up making sidewalks uneven or breaking concrete altogether. We live in a desert threatened by drought every year. There will be an increase of poorly managed watering systems, watering streets and sidewalks, wasting precious resources. Adding sidewalks will require removing well-established trees and landscaping on several properties. What a tragedy that would be, and costly, impossible to replace. Let's put our focus and dollars on an area of Murray that has struggled for many years. Businesses on the southeast and southwest corner of State Street and 59 South have struggled to stay open for years. Many come and go unnoticed. It's the ghost town of Murray with businesses desperately needing help. Let's help our community where it needs it the most. Our neighborhoods are not broken, that's in bold, and never have been. We don't need padded pockets coming in and fixing them to your liking and benefit. Thank you.
The next comment is from John Danzy. It is difficult to offer comments or approval/disapproval for a plan that has, to date, been kept quiet. What is being considered? What will happen to the residents, businesses, parks, and schools that are currently located within the proposed plan area? What will be removed so new buildings or green space can be built? Many of the residents within this area are living in homes that have been in their families since they were built. Most have been major improvements to their homes and properties. Will we be displaced or forced out? The age of many of the residents within the proposed plan area will make it very difficult to relocate and start over. Current market value for property in Murray is too valuable to lose so a municipality and developers' small area plan can move forward. We have worked our entire lives to retire here. The crime level in our neighborhood has skyrocketed since the opening of the Trax Light Rail Station on Winchester Street. The idea of using this neighborhood as a walking green space between Trax and the Fashion Place Mall is devastating to me. Please don't put an even larger welcome mat for the people to wander among our homes. There has been an issue of some transient population using Grant Ballpark Diamonds as a campsite. I cannot stress strongly enough the importance of discouraging this type of activity and feel providing more space that is difficult to patrol will only make this problem worse. I am a business owner with a current Murray City business license. This proposed plan could very negatively impact my ability to conduct as a small business owner. I opted to move my business to Murray, to my home, to support my local schools and community. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard.
Okay, this comment comes from Daniel Garrick from Murray. Dear Murray City Council, I am writing in regards to your meeting about the Fashion Place West project. I have lived in Murray for 63 plus years. All my children attended Murray schools. I coached baseball at multiple levels for many years. I am concerned about a few projects you have in the works, most specifically Fashion Place West, because this will affect me directly. I hope you can help me understand the need to populate or overpopulate every square inch of open space within the Murray City boundaries. Our roads are already crowded at any time of day, and around holidays, it has become very difficult for us to leave our house. We don't have the infrastructure, not to mention the water and power supply. Our utilities have almost doubled in the past year. What about police protection and schools for all the additional people? We need to consider all these things and the burden they will put on many people like my wife and I that are on a fixed income and cannot afford the inevitable increase in our taxes. Have we turned so gluttonous that we need more by adding bigger and shinier things? I listened to the last meeting, and my understanding was that we want to make the walkway from tracks to the mall a more enjoyable experience. First of all, the walk from tracks to the mall is littered with trash so badly that it's nearly impossible not to step on something questionable. This beautification project is not going to keep people from tossing trash at will with no one to clean it up. Not only that, but there are houses with missing siding, multiple unregistered, unworkable cars parked for years on yards, as well as homes with asphalt front yards, houses painted all the colors of the rainbow, not to mention people that just throw unwanted junk in their own front yards, never intending to clean it up. I could go on and on. If Murray City took the money it was going to spend on this project and hire more code enforcement to drive the neighborhoods and enforce some simple maintenance issues, the city itself could be more inviting for all that live in and visit the city without raising taxes and adding more congestion. Is the intention to start building on top of one another because there is no other way to collect additional tax revenue? If people want to live in mini Manhattan, then I suggest moving to Detroit, Chicago, or New York. I urge you to put the decision to continue your plans to waste taxpayer money on this gluttonous project to the vote of the people. Thank you.
The next comment is from Hayden Cadis. To the Murray City Council, I am a resident of a neighborhood included in the area identified by this plan. I have several concerns I would like to see addressed before this plan is considered for any kind of approval. 4 to 6 story apartment and mixed-use high-density buildings are planned along State Street in Winchester. This is in direct opposition to citizen feedback collected by the survey residents were given when developing the small area plan. The Murray Journal in 2020 reported that for affordable housing, residents said they would welcome more cottage cluster additions to the area. Building apartments was the least supported option. Despite that input, the only outline housing in this area is the least supported option. Further, the arguments laid out in this plan for why apartments are needed is severely flawed. The plan outlines that the area has more access to jobs than the rest of the county, and that housing costs are significantly less in the area than housing costs in the rest of the city/county, but also points out that the combined housing and transportation costs per household are higher than the rest of the county. This indicates that residents here have higher transportation costs. This could indicate that individuals already living in the area are not taking advantage of the available jobs in the area. If this is true, why would new individuals take advantage of those jobs when current residents do not? Additionally, the median household income for the area, as outlined in section 1.2.4, is lower than the city/county. These statistics, when taken together, make me wonder about the relationship between the availability of jobs in the area and the ability of those jobs to provide a livable wage. The plan does not provide enough information to support the assumption that it makes that the availability of jobs in the area mean people will work those jobs while living in the area. Further investigation into this area is needed to support this hypothesis, and this plan should not be approved until there is concrete evidence that jobs in the area can support the cost of living in the area. I also wonder if homes in the area are already fulfilling a need in the region, as described by the plan, which is more affordable single-family homes, particularly for individuals who make less than the city-county median household. Shouldn't we continue to fill this niche? The prioritization of goals is also a significant concern. The infrastructure in this area is already overwhelmed, yet rezoning apartment areas is listed as a short-term priority when working with UDOT to increase infrastructure in the area is listed as a long-term goal. To have this order is absurd. One of the justifications for why apartments are a better option for the area outlined in this plan is that apartment dwellers own less cars and use more public transit. If you build the apartments before the infrastructure is improved, individuals in the apartments will be forced to drive more, which defeats the argument of why you should build the apartments in the first place. Section 3 is of particular concern as it outlines decreasing the open space by 50% as well as altering yard setbacks. I question the impact substantially decreasing green space will have on the health of individuals living in the area and the city's natural resources. Green space is important for the physical and mental well-being of individuals living in the area. Decreasing the amount of green space could increase negative health outcomes, such as obesity and depression. The impact of these negative health outcomes may be amplified by the fact that the decrease in green space will occur simultaneously with an increase in the number of people living in the area, meaning the green space per person will significantly decrease. Further, there is no discussion of how decreasing green space in the area will impact pollution or the watershed, the latter of which is particularly important as Murray relies on well water, and change the absorption of water from the environment could impact our aquifer replenishment. No data was provided in the plan for how decreasing green space may benefit or harm Murray's water supply. More information on the long-term health and environmental impact of decreasing this green space should be an important factor in moving forward with the plan as it currently is outlined. I would also like you to consider the overwhelming disapproval of the goals outlined in the plan by the residents who live in the area. Please carefully examine the Murray City Planning Commission meeting minutes and the accompanying email comments sent in by residents. During the entirety of the public comment time, the unequivocal majority of the comments did not approve of the plan. Further, the only individual on the Planning Commission who lives in the area did not agree with the plan. Please listen to your constituents. More specifically, please listen to the stakeholders who will be most impacted by this plan and who most intimately understand the needs of the area. Please ensure that any plan passed to alter this area has goals that are in alignment with the goals of the individuals who live in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all of them?
Patty's got next one.
One.
Thank you.
This is from Stephanie Myers, Murray resident. City Council members, please consider what residents of the area in question like me have to say. The proposed changes have a direct impact on our lives and property values. I live on Lenora Joe Cove. My circle is not in the exact area proposed. I am a little south, but the changes will have a giant impact on my life, property values, and the neighborhood feeling here. I agree that Jefferson Street should have sidewalks, but why would they need to be 6 to 8 feet wide with a parking strip? A simple sidewalk is all that is needed. Our neighborhood is small and we like the feel of it. We don't need a giant city sidewalk in this area. The area that a park is proposed is a neighborhood gem that we all are happy is private. We don't want extra people and traffic coming into our neighborhood. This is also very limited parking on all of our streets. Adding a public park would only make a crowded situation even worse. In regard to wanting to attract more pedestrian traffic to Fashion Place, to tracks, this would only add to the unsavory foot traffic that already exists. I would appreciate efforts to keep that traffic away from Jefferson and the surrounding area to the south. There are some homeless people that wander around down here already, which has been worse since the shelters all closed uptown. Adding apartments to Murray City in any area of Murray should be avoided. We have a lot of apartments and they have high crime rates. Putting apartments right by tracks is a giant mistake. It would only increase crime rates along tracks as routes to escape law enforcement, and would create an uneasy feeling at the station with areas that predators could hide in. Keeping it open and visual is the better to prevent crime. If Murray wants to address housing, it should look at the ways to lower crime in existing apartments in the city. South of Murray on State Street are two big apartment complexes with crime that carry into Murray. That should be addressed as it flows into my area. Also, to add another bike lane would further impede traffic along Winchester. If there is one bike west on tracks going under the overpass, it backs up traffic and is a danger to the biker. I don't want more bike lanes at all. I would appreciate less bike lanes. The proposed light at Creek Drive only sells traffic. That is a problem at Christmas. It would be better to make that exit a turn right only exit and prevent left-hand turns. Adding a light makes traffic flow up State Street choppy and will add a lot of drive time for those of us taking our kids to Hillcrest and Murray High School each morning. Please consider these ideas from others, from the residents who live in this area. I am not happy with the proposed change at all. Thank you for your time.
The next comment is from Brian Sumption. I live on 6207 South Valley Drive. There are 4 homes on the east side of Valley Drive. State Street frontage back property is my back wall. Is this going to affect us all? And Patty has the next one. You're on mute.
I don't have a fourth one. I had 3 to read.
Okay, so during the meeting, we've received a comment from Matthew Schneider. We don't want every spot in Murray to be viewed as a potential place to fill with more people. Why is Murray's job to provide all the housing? The wants of current residents should outweigh future ones. I live in the area and I want nothing to do with the city where I have to look up at 6-story buildings instead of the mountains I moved to the area for. The commission pitches these things by saying we're not approving any specific plan. Then when a specific plan we all hate comes, they approve it by saying it matches the plan we adopted. More public input is needed. I have nothing against more housing, but it seems the whole city wants every available space to be crammed full of people. It will breed more traffic and crime. Thanks. And then also during the meeting, Hayden Cadis, who we've already heard from, sent another email. I don't know if you guys want me to read it or not. Go ahead. Okay. To the Murray City Council, the presentation answers that this does not rezone any area is misleading. If the plan passes, the fact that it has passed will be used by the Planning Commission to justify why future rezoning should be approved in the same way the Planning Commission pushes through this plan despite overwhelming public disapproval because the goals were in line with the goals of the overall Murray Development Plan. Look at the meeting minutes for this very meeting when 10 minutes ago the justification was used by the Planning Commission member. Thank you. And those are all the comments I have.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will go ahead and open it up for discussion again with the council if you guys have anything or have any questions. Anyone?
I'll go first.
Sorry, I can't see you guys. Okay, go ahead, Kat.
I just want to thank everyone for writing in, to take the time to look at the plan. It's a lot to be that involved and to go out of your way to thoughtfully write something and send it in and to care about your community that much. And so I want to say that I really appreciate that, and I don't want to understate that at all. I think there were a lot of valid concerns that happen when there's any change in an area. And I also think, sorry, I've got like a really dry eye. But I also think there's still a lot of misunderstanding and some confusion about what the plan is and what it means. That no one's going to be forced out of their homes. There's no eminent domain happening. That this is a plan for the future, and plans are designed to be followed. But that's not a bad thing, and it's not also an immediate change. And so I hope that the earlier presentation and questions asked answered some of the questions and concerns from some of the residents. And I hope that they can feel more confident with that.
Anyone else?
I don't have anything else, just what I said before. It is a guiding document, and just to make sure that we are prepared and have a vision. I think that's really important for our city. So, thank you. Also, thank you for all those who wrote in. We really do appreciate and have listened to your comments. So, thank you.
I was just going to echo that, Diane. Thank you.
All right. The one thing I will say is, and just reiterate what Diane and Kat have said, and even Dale, is that this is a guiding document. Ordinance is different than guiding documents, and we are facing this in the MCCD zone now. That is very similar. And it's important that your voice does continue throughout this process. Because what's really important is when the ordinance is changed and how that is changed by or guided through this document. And I think that's something that citizens kind of miss when we're looking at these documents and looking at these as guides. And so I just want you to know your voice does matter, and it is important. And this is something that really we need to look at moving forward. Transportation, the city, the state is all looking for the growth. We are having a large number of growth that's happening. And I do truly believe that in Murray we can be smarter, and we can look at this in a different way. Am I for what's happening all over? Not necessarily, but we need to look at it and we need to be strategic. This is one of the ways of being strategic and looking at it for the future. So again, thank you so much for your comments and concerns. And just know the two distinctions between a guiding document and ordinances, and what the ordinances will look like and how they will manifest to help support this guiding document, and also what may not work for the future as well. There's a lot of great things in this document, and then there's a lot of things that may not even happen at all. So I'm keeping an open mind as well to all of this. Anyone else before we go ahead and I take a motion?
Yeah, if I could, Rosalba.
Go ahead.
This is my area, and all the comments don't go unheard by me especially, and the rest of the council as well. I think this is a difficult vote because it's change, and change is hard to fathom, especially when it's a 5 to 25 year plan. But it will still go through, and there was a comment made that the planning and zoning will go through and look at this and say this was approved, and so they'll go ahead and change the zones. That's not necessarily the way it happens. The letters and the emails that we receive, we listen to, and it weighs heavy on us. And it's the same thing with the Planning Commission. If we adopt this plan tonight, and 5 years from now, there's a portion of the plan or a developer that wants to do something. I've seen developers, we've done it in the past where it hasn't gone forward because it's not what the people want or need. And I understand that this is hard to really digest. Hopefully some of the presentation, these comments came in prior, hopefully some of the presentation alleviated that, but I doubt it because there again, change is hard, especially when you don't know exactly what the change is going to be. This is a well laid out document. Change is inevitable, and what our job is to do is to make it as beneficial to Murray City and as low impact to the residents of Murray City as we possibly can. And that's what we're trying to work through here tonight, and at almost every meeting we have, is how do we do this with the least impact and the best results for both Murray City and the men and women that live in Murray City. So don't ever think that your comments aren't listened to and aren't heard by both us and the Planning Commission, two separate bodies. And I suggest, if this passes, I suggest if something comes up in the future, don't say, well, it doesn't do us any good, because it definitely does. It definitely does. It changes plans. It can alleviate some things. It can alter plans to make it more palatable. So never, never, never stop giving us your input, and because it has an effect on us right now. It's not an easy decision. So just know that we are listening, and we're trying to do the best we can with the information we have, and for both the residents of these areas and for Murray as a whole.
Thank you, Dale. Jennifer, quickly, do we have any other more comments? I forgot to close the public hearing, so I'm going to do that now.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Do we have any more discussion on the item? No? Okay. I will entertain a motion from the council.
All right, I will move to adopt the ordinance related to land use, which amends the general plan to include a small area plan for the Fashion Place West area.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a first and a second. Brooke, go ahead and take the vote.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. House?
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
And Ms. Dominguez?
Aye. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, again, for your comments, and please stay in touch. We'll go ahead and move on to our second public hearing, considering an ordinance enacting section 15.20.1545 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to the establishment of public electric vehicle charging stations, and rates amending section 10.08.020 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to the regulation of parking at an electric vehicle charging station. Blaine Hackey and Matt Youngs will be presenting. Go ahead, Blaine.
Thank you, Rosalba. Appreciate the time. Power Department's back at you again. We were with you 2 weeks ago on the Committee of the Whole meeting, and we talked about EV chargers and the desire for us to have a proposed rate. Just a quick 2-minute summary. We received some VW grant money, and we put a sizable contribution ourselves as a power department to install these units at the rec center. We have 3 units there. Each of them have 2 chargers. So we have 6 chargers at the rec center. We have a fire department charger, electric charger that's already installed. And of course, we have plans for the new city hall to have EV chargers. We feel the need to have a rate. We want people to come use the chargers. They're there for a purpose, they're there for a reason. And for that reason, we came to you 2 weeks ago. And what we did 2 weeks ago when we were with you was we reviewed the history. We talked about how we formulated the rate. And then we also talked about the attorney's input and the mayor's office input in this as well. So in your packet tonight, you have 4 items that I could count. One was a review of the history of the EV charger in Murray and the proposal of the rate. We also had a page that had a city comparison with other cities and the way they have formulated a rate. We also have the ordinance, the draft ordinance that we hope to adopt by the end of tonight. And also we have the notice of the public hearing. Now the rates we have proposed are 20 cents a kilowatt hour for the level 2 charger, which is not the trickle charge, and it's not the fast charge, it's a medium size charger. Our rate is proposed to be 20 cents a kilowatt hour. The fast charger, which takes 20 minutes to 30 minutes to actually charge a vehicle, would be 30 cents. We formulated that rate through a third party that came in and helped us with the numbers. So our goal tonight is to answer your final Q&As, your final questions and answers, as well as adopt the ordinance and set a rate that we hope to move forward and move forward. Now I have Matt Youngs also on this Zoom call with us, and he can answer any questions as well. So that's the real quick review, Ms. Dominguez. And if you don't have any Q&As, I think we're ready to adopt the resolution or to do what you want us to do.
Thank you so much, Blaine. Council, does anybody have any questions?
Not at this point, I don't.
No, you answered at our last committee of the whole. You gave us a great description on what was going on. So thanks, Blaine and Matt, for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I have a quick question. I know there's proposed legislation in rates and charging for electric vehicles. How will that affect our ordinance in this? Are you guys aware of that?
I'm not. Matt or GL, do you know of the legislation proposals? I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of any. The only thing I've seen is a proposal to raise the registration fees.
Oh, okay.
For EV owners, and that's more a discussion of where they're not purchasing gas, they're wanting to collect money for road maintenance and whatnot.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but I haven't heard it. I haven't seen anything as far as state legislation as far as charging rates go.
Okay, maybe that was my confusion on that, but all right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Any comments? Dale or Kat? Sorry, I can't see you guys, so I don't know.
No, I think we're okay. Thank you, Blaine, for answering all the questions when we talked about it at Committee of the Whole and for getting this program moving.
Kudos to Matt. He's the expert.
Okay, I don't have any questions either.
Thank you, Dale. All right, thank you, everyone. I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
Result, I think you need a public hearing.
It's a public
Oh, I
hearing.
apologize.
I think.
Yes, I do.
I don't know the protocol.
Thank you,
I
Blaine.
don't know.
Jennifer, do you have any public comments?
We do not for this item.
Okay, so I will go ahead and now close the public hearing. I appreciate that. And
No problem.
we will go ahead and if there's no other further discussions, I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I would just like to make one comment, and that is that I wish we didn't have to charge anything. I wish it could be free to the public so we could encourage electric vehicle use, but I understand at this point we're not able to do that. So I really appreciate the work that Blaine and Matt have put into this, and I'm just so glad we've gotten our new chargers. So thank you. And I'll go ahead and make the motion. Seems like I'm making all the motions tonight. All right. I would like to move to adopt the ordinance enacting Section 15.20.145 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to the establishment of public electric vehicle charging stations and rates, and amending Section 10.08.020 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to the regulation of parking at an electric vehicle charging station.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a first and a second. All right, thank you so much. Brooke, go ahead and take the vote.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hels,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
and Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blaine. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a business item. To consider an ordinance amending sections 13.08, 110, and 13.08, 120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to city water users responsible for services, pipe repairs, and allow the mayor to develop guidelines for adjustments to high water bills due to water user rate. Danny, go ahead, and Danny will be presenting. So go ahead, Danny. Oh, you're on mute, Danny.
Yep, thank you so much for reminding me about that. Thank you, Council and Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, we met with you and discussed changing our ordinance to allow this new policy to take effect. And so tonight we're here. If you have any questions, we'd like to go over those questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'd like you to move forward, allowing this ordinance change to be completed, and so that we can move forward making this policy change and implementing it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. I will go ahead and ask for any discussion on the item. Any comments?
Not for me.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Diane.
I just want to say,
All right.
I really appreciate
Kat.
this. Appreciate this ordinance. I think it's a huge help to residents if they experience a leak to get assistance after they fix the problem, adjusting their rate. I think it's a really nice program, and I think it's going to help a lot of residents. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. I think it's a great program, and thanks Danny and Corey for your work on it. Rosalba, you want a motion?
I will take a motion. Brett, go ahead.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll move that we approve adopting an ordinance, amending sections 13.08.110 and 13.08.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to city water users' responsibilities for service pipe repairs, and allow the mayor to develop guidelines for adjustments to high water bills due to water user waste.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. I got a first and a second. Brooke, go ahead and take the vote.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hels,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. All right, thank you so much. It looks like it's passed. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Danny and Trey, or Corey, sorry.
That's
For a
fine.
minute, I thought I was seeing Trey. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Corey. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward on to our next item, and that would be the mayor's report. Mayor, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to mention this evening that we are really grateful for the moisture that we're receiving. We're talking about the water rates and water waste and so forth. We're really grateful that we're having some water come down. But having said that, the city crews have been out over the weekend and again today to keep the streets clear. And of course, there's a storm expected this evening as well. So we just want to remind our residents of the city that if it's possible to not park on the street, it helps a lot to get the streets cleared more quickly and more safely. And so we'd appreciate that. We are expecting more snow tonight. So I'd also want to pass on a reminder from the police department that in this cold weather, a lot of us will idle those cars, to warm them up. And we have seen an increase in car thefts from cars that are warming up. And of course, you probably saw on the news over the weekend on Friday an incident here in Murray where a car was taken that was left idling with two young children in the back seat. And we would just like to remind the residents to please, if you need to warm your car up, lock the doors, don't leave it unlocked, and help out our police department. That's really all I had to mention this evening, so I'm happy to take questions from the council.
I think we're good. Brett and I are.
Okay,
Anyone
thank
else?
you.
I'm good.
No
Thank-
questions here.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor, for that report. Really appreciate it. And yes, lock your cars and don't leave them idling. All right, I guess we are done for the evening. Thank you so much, everyone. We are officially adjourned. Have a great evening.
All right.
Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Rosalba.